Ladies and gentlemen, to all the attendees of Digital Investment Week 2021, welcome back. Let us now welcome our next presenter, Birgir Ragnarsson, the director and co-founder of Annata Dynamics Sdn Bhd, Malaysia, on Annata's story moving up the value chain. Over to you, Birgir.
Thank you, Hasrul, and welcome everybody. Let me see if I can get my slide up here. There we go. Okay, well, I'm just figuring out how I bring this up to my other screen. Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about Annata's journey, actually from the beginning, but with a focus on our Malaysian operation. A quick intro on our company. We are an IT services and IT development company, specifically serving the automotive, machinery, and medical devices sectors. We work on Microsoft technology solely, and have been awarded most of the Microsoft awards, but most notably we were selected the Automotive Partner of the Year, and that is across all technologies within Microsoft a couple of years ago, and this year we are finalists for the same award. We are within Microsoft Inner Circle. That means top 1% of partners worldwide in terms of providing Microsoft with additional solutions on their technology. In terms of our company, we are about 200 professionals within the company, and when I mean professionals, it's that people that are actually delivering the products of the work. We outsource most of our support functions like HR and so forth. So we run a fairly slim organization. Our revenue is about $40 million a year. And we work with customers in about 40 different countries on all continents. We're headquartered out of Iceland, where I happen to come from as well. And the company was started in the year 2001, and we started our Malaysia operation in 2013, roughly in January 2013. Today, Malaysia represents our biggest office, and there we conduct about over 70% of our development. But it didn't start out that way. When we started in Malaysia, it was actually fairly by coincidence that we ended up there, although we had been for a while looking to set up operations in Asia. But long story short, the fact that we started up in Malaysia has enabled us to grow from a fairly boutique operation into serving some of the largest corporations in the world. Within our customer portfolio, we have companies like Volvo, Toyota, Honda, Komatsu, Hitachi, Yanmar, and so forth. The story of our growth and about our accelerated growth is linked pretty much to the story of our transition to the cloud. So about 5 years ago, we were kind of in the starting blocks of building up our team in Malaysia. We started really building the team in 2014, although we started in 2013. I took the first year really to understand the kind of ground, the culture and the labor market in Malaysia. I had actually never been to Malaysia when I decided to set up an office there. And one of the key reasons that we arrived there was that we had a large project for Volvo in China, which prompted us to look at, how we could serve that project without actually setting up operations in China. So one of the key elements was, Chinese speaking population to some degree, and time zone, in line with China. But we soon found out that there were a number of other advantages to being in Malaysia, and it became a key location in our operations. So we set it up as initially and currently as a global business service, initially to support our deliveries and partner networks around the world. We had not decided in the beginning to set up a development center there. We did not know too much about the capabilities and the availability of talent. But in 2015, we decided to start building up our development capabilities there. When it came to 2017, we were faced with a humongous task, and that was to convert all our on-premise applications to cloud. And needless to say, we actually would not have been able to do this without seeking probably substantial outside finances if we would not have had the development in Malaysia, where we were able to ramp up fairly quickly. And you can see that on that slide that we go from some 30, 40 employees to about 200 in a fairly short time. Just a quick note, I'm trying to maximize my slides here. Let me see if I can. I'm having a hard time seeing my own. Oh, there we go. That's a simple double click. Yeah, so see, we go from 30 in 2007 to about 70, and then we do an accelerated growth with up to 2020. Along the way, we establish partnerships or reseller partnership with some of the largest SIs in the world. And we migrate our solution in the years between around 2017 to 19 from on-premise to cloud. And we make a decision in early 2018, in February 2018, to actually transfer the core development from Europe to Malaysia. Which turned out to be one of the best decisions that we have done. We were able to release all our solutions at the same time Microsoft released the cloud platforms that we built on. Now, the transition took about 2 years. And at the same time that we were doing the cloud transition, we were what we call appificating our products. That means taking a large product and kind of dividing it up to smaller apps. And we have then, since the movement of our development to Malaysia, we have seen accelerated growth in our ordering because at the same time that we transferred the development, we released a lot of capacity within Europe to go into customer-facing and delivery-facing roles instead of using them in development. So it was a twofold exercise. One was that we were able to increase our development capacity substantially. At the same time, we were able to release our previous development into delivery capacity. Our solutions typically take 6 to 12 months to deliver to customers. We are handling all their business from finance to inventory, sales, marketing, and so forth. Now, if you look at our footprint currently, so we're headquartered out of Iceland, where we have about roughly 40 employees. Then in Europe, that is UK and mainland Europe, we have an additional 60 employees. In Malaysia and Japan, so this is when I say Malaysia, there we have a small office in Japan, sales office. So this is for all practical purposes the Malaysian headcount, but there are 2 of those sit in Japan. In Americas, that is US, Canada, and South America, we have about 30 employees. So totally, as of today, we're just roughly 200. So my role within this is, as Hasrul introduced me, I'm one of the founders of the company since 2001, along with a couple of my colleagues that sit in Iceland, and I run the global operations of the company. At the same time, I kind of run the Asia Pacific operation as well, because I sit in Malaysia. Each region or area has then its own operational management that reports to me. So I have a fairly good overview of the pros and cons of each region and country. And just as a point of interest, before I moved to Malaysia, I had actually worked in 32 countries previously. And when I say worked in, it means for several weeks up to several months. So I have a fairly good comparison how to deal with everything from development and delivery to government bodies and so forth. I've been involved in setup of most, if not all, of our offices. So what I'm providing you today is not a opinion based in a vacuum, but of a fairly broad perspective of doing business in multiple different regions and countries. Now, just to give you a little bit idea of what our market is, so you kind of can see things in context. We basically focus on 3 main segments. 2 of them are within automotive and 1 within medical devices. I will focus first on explaining a little bit the automotive and machinery part of our business before going into the medical devices, and then that will provide you with a context as to where our views and opinions originate from. So within the automotive and heavy equipment, we talk about on-road and off-road, or on-highway and off-highway. So on-highway, this is where you got your buses, your trucks, and your motorbikes, everything that has a number plate and drives on the highway. Off-highway is your machinery. That can be everything from heavy lift and shift to construction equipment, agricultural equipment, and so on and so forth. Where we enter this value chain is that we provide systems end-to-end, actually from the factory, but we focus on the downstream part of it. After a vehicle leaves the factory, it enters our systems, and where we track everything from sales, distribution, transfer, leasing, renting, buying, after-sales service parts, and basically from cradle to grave. It's quite an exciting business, going through a lot of disruptions. So we are heavily involved with our clients in looking into the future of automotive, looking into new business models of automotive and machinery. And that brings me to my next slide. That is fueled by the fact that within the next 10 years, we are transferring from a traditional ownership, although that will continue to be a significant part of the market, into mobility as a service. That means that you will be looking to purchase your mobility and not own a vehicle. This is already started in the more developed markets, and this is driven by shared mobility, the autonomous vehicles, and new business models that are forming around this industry, as well as the transformation from typical fuel-based vehicle to electric vehicles. I named a few clients, but just in the last 12 to 18 months, you can see some of the new client acquisitions that we made, and you can see that they're fairly distributed around the world. About maybe 25% out of Asia Pacific, 25% out of the Americas, maybe 30+% Europe, and then Africa as well, with maybe about 10% of it. I'm not listing all our clients there. These are just some of the household names that some of the people watching this may recognize. Our total user base is now somewhere between 50 and 100,000 users. Now we have a growth strategy, and the strategy is very much based on continuing developing within Malaysia, and that is becoming more and more prevalent within our company. We can see here that in the financial 2016, 27% of our development or product development was done in Malaysia, and that is up to 76% in the financial 2020. This has been a major part in keeping our profitability, and currently our company is running about 35% EBITDA. Has been doing so for the last couple of years. Now, this is our growth trajectory. The lowest or the dark point basically means what will our growth be if we do nothing to add new clients. So this is based on already signed contracts we have that are in a ramp up. We do global rollout project. For example, we're currently doing a global rollout project for Scania, the truck maker, to about 100+ countries. These are signed contracts. So if we don't add anything, to our client portfolio, this will be our growth trajectory, the lowest line. This is the beauty of software as a service or subscription model. As we say, it's a gift that keeps on giving, and does usually nothing but add as time grows. Then we see what happens if we realize what we have ongoing as pilots and ongoing engagement, and then additional pipeline that we have. So you can see that we are going from 2021 until 2024 on. We will almost quadruple our revenues based on fairly conservative budgets. Now, another part of our this is our growth solely based on automotive and machinery. There's a bit of a story then behind our medical devices. So when the pandemic hit us all in around March last year, then there's a lot of uncertainty that happened that were especially within automotive machinery. We saw factories close down around the world, and most of our clients in automotive machinery were dealing with a lot of uncertainty. So we had about 20 projects going on worldwide, and about 18 of them stopped temporarily, and we didn't know for how long. So we scaled down a little bit, but we did so without laying off any employees. We asked employees to take a voluntary work reductions. That included in Malaysia, where we, for a period of about 3 months, our staff voluntarily reduced their work from 100% to 70%. It's a testament actually to the loyalty and to the people in Malaysia that it took us all about 2 hours to have everybody sign the voluntary agreements. By far fastest of all countries. At the same time, we had nobody leave the company at this time in Malaysia. We saw an example of fierce loyalty to our operations. We had a number of our employees volunteer to take even additional reductions, And what was interesting, that even if all of them took on these reductions, and many of them kept 100% work commitment. This was most notably within our Malaysia team, that the commitment to getting us out of the rut that we found ourselves was 150%. Now, luckily for us, these industries, they ramped up pretty quickly. About 3 to 4 months into it, they figured out, well, they have to produce. They cannot stop like that. And we saw ourselves to full business in the fall of 2020. And then the growth trajectory has been quite impressive since then, mostly due to the fact that we have all our solution in the cloud. Those that of our customers that have not transferred to the cloud are doing so fairly fast now, based on the new realities of work. Now, during this time, we saw interesting developments. We saw some of the automakers reach out to medical device companies to assist them in their manufacturing processes. This was most notably in ventilators. We saw one of our customers, Scania in Sweden, ship a lot of their staff down to a medical device manufacturer to assist them with ramping up. And we started thinking, well, we have been making systems for the automotive industry for all these years, and are fairly bleeding edge in that. Do we have a role within the medical device industry? This was specifically because we have found that we had a couple of customers within the medical devices industry space actually using our automotive system in their practices. We found out that these are fairly similar processes, business processes that take place. There are warranties, there are recalls, there are quality standards, there are government bodies dealing with regulations. And in March 2020, we carved out a team within our Malaysian office to address this specific business. And in record time, or in less than a year, we were able to bring the solution to market. We did in 1 year with our Malaysia team on development what had taken us before about 5 to 6 years. This is driven by the fact that, of course, we had time because we had the project stop, but that was only temporarily. It was just the commitment and enthusiasm that we were able to create within the team that created the momentum. So our Malaysia team is 100% responsible from end to end in developing our solutions for the medical devices market. And as such, we decided to give it a Malaysian name as well, the product. So to give you just a brief glimpse, I'm not going to go over functionality of systems here. If anybody is interested in that, we can do that offline. But basically, we are providing for the medical device industry the same processes and system that we have done for automotive and machinery. That is manufacturing, distribution, and sales, quality management, after-sale service, field service, warranties, parts, and new business model around medical devices. So providing medical device as a service, which is a very important part of the future of medical devices, is that we have wearables and portable devices now going into people's home. Many of you have a medical device actually on your arm in terms of the smartwatches, which are measuring a lot of your vitals. These products need to be served, and they are critical in many instances. And we provide the systems basically to serve that. Now, Coming back to our choice of Malaysia, when we were deciding, we were actually not looking for a development center at the time. We were looking for a place to locate a regional service and support for Asia Pacific initially. And the reasons we chose Malaysia is listed out there, but just to give you an idea, the shortlisted countries were Malaysia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Most other were excluded just based on ease of doing business or ownership structures required of a company. What we found was we needed a multilingual location where we could serve both in English but also in various Chinese dialects. We needed a place where we could easily bring in the staff that we needed to build up the company in Malaysia. We are very specific in terms of the technology and the industries we serve, and we need to bring people from Europe in to begin with to build up the expertise. And we looked at how easy that would be. We found out that all the processes around that, and now I'm talking from experience in multiple countries because I have brought in employees in different countries. It is the most efficient and easiest process I have experienced bringing in expertise from outside has been in Malaysia. And I can compare it to our headquarters in Iceland, where it takes minimum of 3 months to process outside employee permit. And this is measured in days or weeks in Malaysia. So we have one efficient shop for immigration processes. The cost effectiveness, and we look at cost from two perspectives. It's a cost of doing business, and then it's cost of living. It's impossible for us to bring somebody from a let's say a lower cost area to our Icelandic headquarters business without doubling their salaries, because the cost of living is high there. So we have to look at cost of living of people also, not just the business. Infrastructure was important. Ready fiber infrastructure, uptime, and so forth. We have similar uptime on our internet services and business services in Malaysia than we have in Europe and the US. At fraction of the cost. Location was important. Now this is maybe not as important today, but before the pandemic, typically 1/3 of our office would be located somewhere else on a project delivering. So we would fly within the region, and the location was important just because we have two of our biggest markets within region are Japan and Australia. They're on the opposite ends, and Malaysia fitted quite well within, just in terms of flight times and so forth. Cultural diversity is something that we look for and enjoy, and it brings various strengths. Our company is fairly equally divided in terms of the Malaysian employees between the kind of three major ethnic groups within Malaysia. There's no predominant culture or religion within our company. And then maybe last but not least is the legal system is on its ground based on English common law, although Malaysia law draws from various different places. A part of the business law, I believe, is from Australia, or in India, part of it from Australia, but where the law ends, British common law is the backbone of it. It's easy for us to understand. It's easy for us to do business within that legal environment. Now, there's some challenges that we're facing. They are not hard to overcome. What has been a challenge for us in place of having a global business services in Malaysia is the time zone, because a lot of our clients and projects are in Europe and US. And we draw the short stick on the time zone in Malaysia because we end up doing nighttime work where everybody else is doing daytime. Now, this, this is not a people problem so much. People are willing to work, different time zones in Malaysia. We tell them, if you're working on a European project, you just start at noon and you work until 8, and then you overlap. The challenge is that people have different energy levels and different times of the day. So when we're faced with having a meeting with somebody in the US or Europe, and it's nighttime for me and it's morning for my European colleagues, I'm a bit grumpy and they are very happy. It's just there's a mismatch on energy levels. So this is overcome by just making everybody aware of it. Having people in Europe and US reserve their early morning hours for work with our Malaysia team, not book them, at meetings at midnight and so on. It's just, building up considerations. So this is easily overcome. Another challenge is a little bit, in general, English understanding and comprehension is quite good in Malaysia. But when you get into a professional setting as a consultant, dealing with a high-end organization, for example, in Australia or US, it's a little bit tricky to come across as professional, with the kind of a Malaysian English slang. So we have had to kind of try to educate our staff about this, try to even conducted some lessons and things like that. But then we are just very picky when we hire, in this, that we need somebody with a proper English capabilities, especially if we're going to face them into a customer-facing role. This is typically not an issue within development, and the developer or the product developer, they're usually not customer-facing, but we do support and deliver also, and then we have to be mindful. The third challenge is what I call, and this is not, this is a global problem. This is not a specific Malaysian problem, but it is. We see this in UK quite heavily, and then we see this in Asia as well. That is what I call non-merit-based hierarchies. We are, well, first of all, there's no such thing as a flat organization. It's just a question of how the hierarchies have been built within them. We run what we call a flat organization, which means that our hierarchies are there, but they're based on people's merit, not on people age or pronouns, what is in front of the name, and so forth, what family they come from. So we still deal a little bit with this, that there are non-merit-based hierarchies. So when people enter our companies, they automatically think that they're walking into a traditional hierarchy, and they're not. And they realize quite early on that they can fast become on top of their hierarchy if they work correctly. But this is educational thing, training thing that we do. And for this reason and some other reasons, we tend to hire a lot of freshers out of university in Malaysia and build them up. And there's a reason why that is specifically successful. And that's my hand drawing on the slide up in the right corner. That was a last minute alteration that I just did draw a freehand on my computer. What I'm trying to explain there is when we look at cost or salaries in Malaysia, they're actually merit-based. The compensation track is typically merit-based in terms of the compensation. Whereas in, for example, Scandinavia, where we come from, there is a very much a social democratic flavor of it. And that means that if I hire somebody in Northern Europe, and actually it goes for other areas as well, the starting salary of a fresher coming out of university is about 50% of that one that with 10 to 15 year experience. They cannot produce anything at that time. It takes us about 2 years to bring them up to speed because of the specific of our industry. So a break-even point for somebody coming into our office, let's say in Denmark, is at least 2 years. And that's at a salary that is about maybe $5,000 a month. Now, the difference between that cost and the same person in Malaysia is about ×5. But the difference between that same person after 15 years in terms of cost is only maybe ×2. But at that point, it doesn't matter for us, because after 10 to 15 years, that person is producing so much that they are giving back multiple the salaries, no matter if the salary is $3,000 or $5,000. So this is a pure condition to actually hire in big bulk, fresh out of university, and train them without breaking the bank, breaking the budget. So this is what we do now in our Malaysian office. About 4 of every 5 new hires we do these days is fresh. We need to continue to do the experienced hire to because somebody needs to bring them up. But we have come to a point where we have enough capacity within our office there to bring up groups of freshers. So currently we have a group of 8 people that we brought in the beginning of June. We take them through 2 months intensive boot camp, and then about 6 months of mentored work. And this we do about a couple of times a year. There's some pleasant surprises that we came into. What I found is that if you find your ways into the heart of people, not just into their purse, you receive a fierce loyalty. Our attrition, I don't remember what it's called, our turnaround in our Malaysia office is the lowest of all offices in the world. People don't leave unless they're actually moving to a different country. It's just, and we found this specifically within the pandemic, and this goes against so the image that there sometimes is of job hopping Asians, because if you look at some of the CVs, there seems to be a lot of job hopping. That is a result of how companies treat people, not a result of them seeking out endless increased compensation. It's just the loyalty is fierce if you treat people right. Another surprise, ease of dealing with government bodies. It has, in 9 years that I've been working in Malaysia, I have not been across a single time where anything was suggested other than normal good government practices in dealing with the government. We hear about corruption in different countries. Malaysia, of course, is no exemption of that. It just does not happen at the level we are working at. It simply doesn't happen. And I'm no stranger to that. And I've done extensive work both in Africa and South America, and my radar is pretty much well tuned to these things when it happens. And it just, for us in 9 years, not a single instance. Efficient, capable people within the government institutions that we have dealt with. I've even been audited myself personally in Malaysia. And I've been audited in different countries actually, because it typically happens because my residence and lifestyle is unusual with my family living in Iceland, my wife living in Spain, and me in Malaysia. I have to deal with different tax authorities. And even my auditing was a pleasant experience in Malaysia, professional but very pleasant. So that was quite a pleasant surprise. Now, and I addressed the merit-based compensation. You start low, you end up in a fairly good place. And now, just in case I have some Scandinavian colleagues that are looking at this, we're not exploiting a lower cost employment based. Actually, if I compare the take home of a senior consultant in Malaysia versus senior consultant in Scandinavia. In Malaysia, it's roughly about half, but the cost of living is less than half. That means that our employees in Malaysia actually financially have a better life than they have the same people in Scandinavia. It's just because the cost of living compensates for it. This is important. This is important for companies, especially Scandinavian companies that have to follow quite strict code of conduct and ethics. And we have to be very careful, and our customers also look into this today. Large customers demand that we are able to fulfill their ethical code of conduct and standards. And that means that we have to show and prove that we are not exploiting labor in any way. That has been absolutely no problem. Now, just there's a snapshot there that I took out of Job Street, which is actually a job portal in Malaysia, to show, and this is voluntary based, where employees go in and rate your companies. And we can see there actually that the loyalty is not based off just salaries, because that's our lowest rate we get, is actually benefits and perks, because we don't overpay. We pay market rates. But it's, if you provide people with a decent working environment, reasonable management, a proper work-life balance, you receive extreme loyalty in this country. So that's my story about Annata's journey for the last 9 years or so in Malaysia. And if there are any questions that you think that I can put some light on, I'll open up for the Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Birgir. So thank you for promoting Malaysia to your Scandinavian-based businessmen out there. Yes, Malaysia is an excellent place to work and also to do business. Now, I believe that you were talking about retention. Just now you were looking for a better word instead of turnaround. I think you were looking for turnover, right? Turnover, the word turnover. Yeah. It's good to see that you mentioned the loyalty of Malaysians. It's part of building the company up. Now, so as you mentioned, the automotive industry was mostly hit because of the pandemic about 17, 18 months ago, and there was a bit of a shift more towards the medical technology. So here, could you roughly mention about the percentage of how much the automotive industry has dropped, and how big a growth of the medical side has been in the past 18 months?
So actually, the automotive industry has increased.
Now,
so it dropped in the beginning because of the uncertainty. But what happened is a number of trends happened. First of all, we deal with machinery and automotive. On the machinery side, we see government stimulus coming into these countries, and often that is based on infrastructure. That infrastructure needs machinery. So we are actually seeing increase year on year. So we measure ourselves, our opportunity, based on how our customers are doing. Our customers in machinery are growing. In automotive, there's also a growth. 2020 was a drop. 2021 is a growth year. It's driven by maybe two main things. A, there's a drop in public transportation. People have been more self-conscious about taking a train or a bus where you have crowds of people. So that trend has shifted, at least temporarily. That has meant increased in automotive. The second thing is the transformation the industry is going through. There's there's a transformation that the automotive industry is going through that drives a lot of investment in IT, and we are at the apex of that. We're at the forefront of that technology, providing one of the things we do, we provide fleet management systems, a lot of automotive activities is now about managing a fleet of something. We look at companies like the ride-sharing companies. Some of those actually, like Go in Indonesia, they actually buy the fleet themselves and provide them to the drivers, because sometimes the drivers cannot afford the vehicles. We provide the system on the backbone for that fleet management, for example. We see that a lot of usage-based rental type companies are growing, providing new business models. So we have seen new opportunities. We just went live a few months ago with Renault in Brazil on a it's not renting, it's like loaning programs where you have access to vehicles when you need them. You can choose different vehicles at different times based on are you using the city and outside the city. We're working on similar concepts with Volvo. Basically new business models within automotive are demanding new type of systems. And then the cloud transformation. A lot of our customers found out during the pandemic, if they had not upgraded to the cloud, they didn't possess the infrastructure to provide all their employees to work from home. And it provided a challenge, whereas everybody that had transferred to the cloud, it was not an issue. And then we actually see new opportunities in Malaysia, specifically coming up with Microsoft Azure data center being established in Malaysia. Very important part of us going into the Malaysian market by itself. So Malaysia for us has always been a location to serve regionally and globally. But now with the Microsoft data center coming in Malaysia, there's also a new opportunity for us just to serving the local market itself.
Okay, so because this one would lead to the next question, one of the questions from the audience. They ask, how accurate is your extrapolation data up to 2024? So since because of the pandemic, okay, it had dropped earlier during the pandemic, then there was a correction. So therefore, is the projection still valid, or have you also done a little bit of correction?
No, this is actually a brand new projection.
Oh, okay.
This one was made in May this year.
Oh, okay. So it is relatively new. Okay, so pretty much valid.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Now here a question. What would be the three things, most important things for you to recommend a startup entering to Malaysia and create partnership in the region? Three things.
First and foremost, access to talking from my point of view, within my industry, what I know, access to talent. And what's important is not only can you and of course within the MSc umbrella or MTech umbrella, we can bring in a fairly substantial amount of expats into startup. But what we actually have done since then is, the number two is focus on your Malaysian talent. Just don't focus on just bringing in people, continue bringing in people from outside. So we did that in the start. So in the beginning, we brought a number of people from our HQ and from outside. And I'm happy to say that I'm the only one left of those. And probably next year, I will hand over the total directorship and running of a Malaysian office to somebody in Malaysia. What we found is that while we may be able to bring in expertise from outside, by building it from the inside, we keep it there. You have if you bring in people from outside expertise, those are usually people on a journey to somewhere. And they will stay with you for 2 or 3 years and then move on. And for our business, that provides a disruption because it takes time in our business. And this, with what we find and what another pleasant surprise, most Malaysians are actually not looking to move anywhere else. They're not on a journey to somewhere else. They may go get their education somewhere else, but typically they come back. I do not have and have never had a single request from anybody within our Malaysian staff to transfer to some of our other offices. Now we provide that option to our employees to transfer because we have companies in Canada, US, in Europe, and so forth. The typical UK, typical destinations that people that maybe looking to better their lives are looking for. This I can see typically from the staff that we have brought in from India and Pakistan and so forth. They're on a journey. So be just mindful that by staffing up with Malaysian talent, you have that stability within, treat them properly and you get the stability. So this is number two kind of important part. The maybe overlooked part is why Malaysia is good as a location is when you start something up. Now I'm talking about startup from our perspective. We already had a company, but we started up in Malaysia as a new location. For me to attract the right people temporarily from Europe to work with me on this build-up, location is important. Recreational activities are important. So typically what I would do when I was trying to kind of pitch to one of my colleagues, like come over for half a year and train up some employees, I'll just send pictures of beaches. And I would do that, send a picture like that in December to Iceland, and it's an easy sell. Now this is, this is not all places are created equal when it comes to this. And there Malaysia wins easily over most of the neighboring countries. There are some great countries around, the place like Thailand and so forth, but those are not easy places to set up businesses. And you get all the other problems there around ownership structures and so forth, which we don't have in Malaysia. We are 100% owned organization by our Icelandic entity, not a problem. This you can have a problem in some of the neighboring countries. So location is important to attract the right talent. Maybe the fourth point, which is I found quite important, is Malaysia is one of kind of the often the key countries where top students from Muslim countries, other Muslim countries come to. And this has been also a substantial part of our talent pool, is that we have people from all around the world that have come to Malaysia to do their either the bachelor's or master's degrees. With Malaysia being one of the most developed Muslim countries in the world, and people who want to stay within that framework from around the world, they often come to Malaysia. And that gives us a talent pool that we don't see elsewhere in terms of that specific demographics. And this is part of our diversity and to create a vibrant and interesting workplace.
Okay, thank you for your insights there on maybe a different aspect that we don't see. So maybe if you want to send some of your staff to other countries, to Europe, just send them a picture of snow. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Reverse psychology. All right. Say maybe, okay, come on, let's put you in one of the offices in Europe. You'll enjoy the winter all year round. Okay, stay there for a couple of years and then come back and help out.
We have actually done that. We have had some of Malaysian staff go to Iceland for actually a year.
That's good.
So yeah, that is actually one of the perks that we used to be able to provide people with, because there's a lot of travel. It used to be a lot of travel involved in our work, and that has kind of stopped now. Let's see what the future brings us there. We don't know yet.
Yeah, because that's part of a perk for you to, like you yourself, you travel to 32 countries. So let your staff, especially Malaysians, let them venture out if they've never been to their university overseas. They only got their education locally.
Yeah.
See that this part of what keeps them loyal here in Malaysia, but make sure that there is something out there. Like you
So
said,
it's an interesting point is that in Malaysia, people look at travel as perk.
yes.
In Scandinavia, they do not.
Ah.
They very much want to stay at home. They don't want to travel for work. So that's actually a good. We sent out a survey to our employees, and we asked, "What is the longest that you would, be able to make a trip?" We just want to understand family situations and things like that amongst our staff. So
Mhm.
typically, our employees in Scandinavia said 2 weeks max, and then I have to come home. And in Malaysia, the minimum was like 6 weeks. It was like 6 to 12. It's just total different scale. And it also kind of reflects back on the family unit and how people live. Typically in Malaysia, you have a strong family unit. It's easy maybe for the breadwinner to leave home for long times because the family is strong and takes care of children and so forth. And this is not so easy in Northern Europe, where the family unit is not as strong.
Oh,
So
okay.
traveling for work is it's very easy for me to send people somewhere. And important part, extremely important, Malaysians don't need visa to go to Europe. We can just send them, there's a request, we can send the day after. And these are only a handful of countries in Asia that have that privilege. So it was not an important part of us setting up, but knowing what I know now, it would be an important part, because typically you would have to wait 2 or 3 weeks with other nationalities. So that can be an issue when you're dealing in an agile environment.
Ah, okay. So yeah, this could be part of your recruitment drive whenever you want to get new staff here from Malaysia. Say, okay, maybe after 2 years, we'll be able to give you a posting somewhere outside. So attract a better talent.
We do that. What we found out is that most Malaysians are quite happy staying and living in Malaysia. So
Yeah.
it's not that big of a perk. They like to go for maybe a month or two, but they actually don't like to relocate. And that's what actually, I'm quite happy with that, because I'm able to create a stability within the office.
Yeah, exactly. Like not just staying in Malaysia. Sometimes they only stay within their own home state. They don't want to travel far from their relatives or friends or family. So yeah, that's a good thing to see on in the long term
Yeah.
stability. Exactly. Um, I believe we've covered more or less on that. Let me see if any other questions. I'm looking. So basically, it's more about your talent is what is the backbone of your operations. It could have been anywhere, but you chose Malaysia because of their loyalty. You chose Malaysia because of the infrastructure and location. But loyalty and the people are the ones who make the things work. So are you looking to
Yeah,
expand further in the next, say, 18 to 24 months?
absolutely. We are currently about 70 people in Malaysia, about
Mm-hmm.
65.
Mm-hmm.
We probably will add before the year end another 10 people. It's our fastest growing
Mm-hmm.
office.
Mm-hmm.
It is a backbone of our development.
Okay.
We have our roadmaps in front of us that are quite
Mm-hmm.
aggressive and challenging, and we will be increasing the headcount there.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good. All right, I think we've almost run out of time. Thank you for speaking to us and explaining your business as well as your cultural differences of what's happening throughout the world and comparing it to what Malaysia has offered. Maybe it's enlightening for us here in Malaysia, and maybe because you are looking at expansion, you might get some new investors who be joining you in, who might be listening to you today. All right. Thank you, Birgir, for that interesting presentation. Excellent. Okay.
Yep.
All
Thank you,
right.
Ashwin.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Okay, everybody, to all the attendees, okay, we will now take a short break from our sessions and resume later at 2 p.m. See you then. Bye.